අවසරයි ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේ. තෙරුවන් සරණයි.
Yeah, Thero Sanai, hope you can hear me.
Yes, ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේ, we can hear you.
Yeah, fine. So we are going to start the next part, that is the discussion on concept and reality book compiled by Most Venerable Katakurunde Gnanananda Thero. I think Saman is ready with reading part. So probably then we'll start with the point where we have stopped last week.
Bante. We stopped at this end of this paragraph. Shall I just read this paragraph, or shall I just start? Yeah, I'll read this paragraph.
Better read that also, and then we'll continue.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
When it is said, one should not affect the dialect of the countryside, one should not deviate from recognized parlance. In reference to what is it said, and what monks is affection of the dialect of the countryside, and what is departure from recognized parlance. In this case, monks in different districts, they know the different words, Pati, Patta, Vitta, Sarava, Tarupa, Pona, Pisila. Thus, as they know the word as this or that in these various districts, so does the person abstain the clinging to it and adhering to it. Explains, this indeed is the truth. All else is falsehood. Thus, monks is affection of the dialect of the countryside and departure from parlance. And what monks is non-affection of the dialect of the countryside and non-departure from parlance. In this case, monks in different districts, they know the different words, Pati, Patta, Vitta, Sarava, Darupa, Pona, Pisila. Yet, although they know the word as this or that in these various districts, a person does not cling to it, but explains. These venerable ones definitely express it thus. Thus, monks is non-affection of the dialect of the countryside and non-departure from recognized parlance. The value of the above exhortation would be greatly enhanced by the circumstance that herein the Buddha, in describing one of the steps of peaceful path, Aranapatipada, which he recommends for the monks. This path is contrasted with the warlike path, Saranapatipada, an instance of which can be seen in the above passage itself when it refers to the dogmatic and extremist attitude towards dialects. The Aryan disciple should avoid this latter and should cultivate instead a moderate and tolerant attitude as regards to the question of dialects. What inculcates in him such a liberal spirit is the very dialectical implications behind the parable of the raft. Samma Ditti, the right view, may be regarded as the unique among all forms of dittis, owing to its peculiar dialectical element. A dramatic illustration of the unique character is reflected in the apparently drab and uninspiring opening of the Madhupindika Sutta. There we found Dandapani, the Sakyan, questioning the Buddha in order to ascertain the theory as he preached. The Buddha's reply, which we have discussed earlier, was rather periphrastic. Dandapani would have expected, like most of us, to get a reply in the form of some short label of a dogma. He was, therefore, dissatisfied with the Buddha's reply, which might have appeared to him as a piece of verbal papancha. And so he shook his confused head, raised his puzzled eyebrows, grimaced, and went away. One might be tempted to show a similar response to the Buddha's reply if one fails to appreciate its deeper implications. The Buddha had no theory to be declared other than that he had put an end to all theories and all proclivities towards them. His purpose as a teacher was to indicate the path to the same goal that he attained. One of the most important among those suttas which afford us a deeper insight into the enlightened attitude towards concepts is the Mulapariyaya Sutta, quite deservedly counted as the first in the Majjhima Nikaya. It portrays for us the Weltanschauung of the following types of individuals. The uninstructed average person, taking no account of the noble ones, unskilled in the Dhamma of the noble ones, untrained in the Dhamma of the noble ones, taking no account of the good men, unskilled in the Dhamma of the good men, untrained in the Dhamma of the good men, Asutava Putajjano Aryanang Adassavi Arya Dhammassa Akovido Arya Dhamme Avinito Sappurisanang Adassavi Sappurisa Dhammassa Akovido Sappurisa Dhamme Avinito. The monk who is a learner, not attained to perfection, but who lives striving for the incomparable security from bondage. Bhikkhu seko appattamanaso anuttarang yogakkemang pattamano viharati. Pattayamano viharati. The monk who is perfected and free from cankers, who has lived the holy life, done what was to be done, laid down to the burden, attained his goal, whose fetters of becoming are utterly worn away, who's freed by perfect profound knowledge, Bhikkhu arahang keenasavo vusitava katakaraniyo obitabaro anupatta sadatto parikkhena bhava sangyojano asammadanya vimukto.
Yeah.
The Tathagata, the perfected one, fully self-awakened, Tathagato Araham Samma Sambuddho.
Okay, give me a second, Saman. I'll briefly discuss so far what we are going to go ahead. So basically, Venerable Jnananda now trying to give some understanding about the concepts and how people would look into that from their own angle. So far we discussed some matters with respect to say what is the value of concepts and how people sometimes get trapped in the concepts, and they give some overemphasis to concepts and to various kinds of conventions. As Buddha explained, taking an example of the ball. So you know that the ball is something that monks are using to have their pindapata, have their meals, and that can be used, that can be named from different names at different places, at different locations. But we should not need to adhere, or we should not need to kind of have a grasping towards the name that we are using. It is a mere naming concept that we are using. Just using the name as patta or ball or whatever. Now, we should not say that this is the only name, this is the only correct name, and we are using that forever and every other thing is wrong or something like that. That is kind of wrong way of telling it, because some other people might use a different name and we may be using another kind of a name. So it's a kind of a recognition that we are trying to do. We are trying to communicate with others using names. So once we know their proper cause, once we know their proper usage, then we don't need to adhere to them. We don't need to quarrel with the others, and we can simply use it just to communicate. So likewise, even though Buddha give this clear understanding, clear picture with respect to concepts, but typically the people are not looking at the concepts from that angle. Rather, they take concepts to be very strongly, and they start talking about it, they start thinking about it, and they may even to conceive about it, and they may even get into the proliferation about it. Conceptual proliferations, the papancha can happen with respect to concepts. Probably you can remember that we discussed about two aspects into the concepts, rather the papancha, the conceptual proliferation. One aspect is so dynamic and the other aspect is kind of a static. The dynamic aspect is actually rooted in one's mind. So when we perceive something through our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and the mind, so rather than simply keeping them as it is, so rather than recognizing them as it is, we have a tendency to proliferate. We have a tendency to multiply it. We have a tendency to diversify the whole thing. And that leads to the conceptual proliferation. So that is one dynamic aspect what we are talking in the with respect to the papancha, with respect to conceptual proliferation. The other part is the static side. So whatever man-made, whatever the products that people have generated, prepared, or what are the concepts that people have prepared, what are the conventions that they have all come together, they have put it into action. Now all that concepts, all that man-made products have the potential to create thinking in one's mind. Say, for example, we are creating a car and it requires so much of many people's contribution. A designer may be designing about the appearance. An engineer may be designing the internal, say, parts. Another one, a mechanical engineer may be designing about the engine. Another person may be looking at the interior part. Another one may be about the other decorations. So likewise, so many people's contribution is there when we are talking of a human product, say a car. But when another person look at that car, so we might have branded it, we might have given a name to it. And now he don't see that everyone's contribution and how it was prepared, how it was made. Rather, they simply say, this is a car, this is a beautiful car, this is a really wealthy kind of a luxurious car. So likewise, different way they start thinking. They may want to acquire it, they want to hire it, they want to buy it, they want to steal it. Whatever the way, they may start thinking about it. So likewise, all the products that human made and all the concepts that we have come out with, and all different languages, all different words, conventions, regulations, all are actually stimulate the mind to think. Now, when we are talking on this angle, now Buddha is going to explain how people are approaching all these concepts. So with respect to 24 concepts, now he is going to explain us how people would approach. So he is taking 4 categories of people. The first category is actually the worldling, who has no idea about the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. He has no idea about particularly the teaching, and there is no training at all. He has no thorough understanding about the teaching. So he's a typical worldly being who has not trained at all. How he is looking at concepts and what happened after he encounter a concept. So that is one person that Buddha is considering. The other person is a seeker, as a trainee, who actually has some understanding about the Buddha's teaching, and he himself has practiced to some extent and was able to understand some depth, a realistic understanding about these concepts. But still, he doesn't have a complete understanding. He somewhat, some further need to be fulfilled, further need to be completed. So therefore, he still have a potential to proliferate. So that is the second person. He's a trainee. The third person is the Arahant, who has completed the training, completely abandoned the Raga, Dosa, Moha, all that defilements, the roots of the defilements, all are abandoned. So he's the perfectly enlightened one. Then the last one is the fully enlightened Buddha, Samma Sambuddha. And actually, when Vajananda now going to tell us how these 4 people are looking at various concepts. So that is the theme of the Mulapariyaya Sutta, which is the very first sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya. So actually we can see the last 2, that is the Arahant and the Buddha, So they all are the perfected ones. They all are fully enlightened beings. So therefore, we can consider last two as one. That means in terms of the individuals, we can say they are looking at the things at the same way, because they all are completely free from defilements, completely free from influxes. So therefore, even though two people were considered, we can say the last two people, that is the Arahant and the Buddha, they both are looking at things in the more similar manner. So therefore, we can say only three people we can sort of minimize to three people, and then we can look at how they would look at things, how they would approach concepts, and what is the kind of reaction they are going through with respect to concepts. So that is what explained in the Mulapariyaya Sutta, and it's a fairly comprehensive analysis. Buddha is taking from different fields. Actually, these concepts, 24 concepts, he is taking as examples, and they are from different fields. Say, for example, Patavi, Apo, Tejo. So those are the material aspects of this whole physical world he is considering. And then some jhanic experiences he is considering. And with respect to our senses, how one would see, hear, smell, taste, touch, think, that he considers. And again, even the Nibbana he considers. So this is a very interesting discussion, and it's a very, very important sutta, Mulapariyaya Sutta. So that is what now we are going to discuss, and we'll see how Venerable Jnananda is going to explain it to us.
Of these four types, the last two may be conveniently treated as one, since their Weltanchong is the same, and thus we have here three basic types. In this sutta, the Buddha sets out to preach the fundamental mode of all phenomena. Sabbadhamma Mulapariyayango Bhikkave Tesissami. He enumerates a list of 24 concepts and explains the attitude of the above-mentioned individual types towards those concepts. The list includes the following: earth, fire, air, beings, devas, Prajapati, Brahma, the radiant ones, the lustrous ones, the Vehappala, Brahmas, the overlord, the realm of infinite space, the realm of infinite consciousness, the realm of nothingness, the realm of neither perception nor non-perception, the seen, the heard, the sensed, the cognized, unity, diversity, universality, Nibbana. Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayo, Bhuta, Deva, Prajapati, Brahma, Abhasara, Subhakinha, Vehappala, Abhibu, Akasananchayatanang, Vinyananchayatanang, Akinchanayatanang, Nevasanyanasanyayatanang, Dittang, Sutang, Mutang, Vinyatang, Ekattang, Nanatang, Sabbang, Nibbanang. For all the apparent diversity among these terms, they are
one moment. So we can see that how Buddha has selected 24 concepts touching many aspects. So it's not one single aspect, one single domain that he has touched, but he has touched many different domains. Say, for example, Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayo. So those are representing the physical aspects. And then Bhuta, Deva. So they are, we can say, the kind of the Kamavachara realm, the sensual realm. And then Pajapati, Brahma, Abhasara, Subhakinha. And they particularly represent further material and immaterial, particularly the material realm. So that is the material realm in the sense the material Rupa realm, the jhanic realms. And then Vehappala, Abhibu, so they are actually the further Brahma realms, but talking about the pure abodes. So they are the people who are there with respect to their attainments, as a result of their attainments. And then Akasananchayatana, Vinyananchayatana, Akinchanyayatana, Nevasanyayatana, so those are the Arupa realms, the immaterial realms. And then dittan sutam mudang vinyatang. So those are how we are dealing with the outside world, how our senses are operating with the outside world. So that with respect to that, Buddha has taken. And ekattang nanattang. So that means how one may perceive as a one person, as a diversified experience. So that is another side. And sabbang, considering everything, how we perceive when someone is telling everything, all how we perceive, and then the nibbana. So how one would think about the nibbana. Now all these are concepts. So that's a very interesting way of looking at things. So all these are concepts. Now we might think, okay, some of them may be concepts, but some are not concepts. We might think, okay, nibbana is not a concept. Or sometimes one might say, okay, Patavi is not a concept. You can experience it. So likewise, so here one might argue some of them are concepts, some of them are not concepts. But here, according to the Buddha, so how about these one would approach in a superficial way when we are talking of the typical worldly person? But the seeker, the trainee, actually has gone through some training. He has gone through some practice. As a result of that, he has some different kind of understanding about these concepts. And then the Buddha and the Arahants, so they have thoroughly understood their proper nature. So they are in a way penetrated about these concepts. So we look at how they are responding, and according to this sutta.
For all the apparent diversity among these terms, they are all of a piece as concepts. Now the attitude of an uninstructed average person towards them is described thus. Idabhikkhave asutava putajjano pataving patavitto sanjanati pataving patavitto sanyatva pataving manyati pataviya manyati patavitto manyati pataving meti manyati pataving meti manyati pataving abhinandati tankissa hetu aparinyatang tassati vadami. Apang apato nibbanang nibbanato. Hearing monks, the uninstructed average person cognizes earth as earth. Having cognized earth as earth, he imagines earth as such. He imagines on the earth. He imagines from the earth. He imagines earth is mine. He rejoices in earth. What is the reason for this? I say that it is not well comprehended by him. The same is repeated for water down to Nibbana.
Okay, 1 second, Saman. Now, here actually we need to understand how a worldly person look at Patavi. Say, for example, you look at your house, your car. So when you are looking at your car, so what is the reaction happening in your mind? What is the response happening in your mind? So since it is your car, probably immediately you might say, okay, it is my car. So basically kind of a possession, kind of a belongingness probably appear in your mind. And so probably you may start thinking, okay, this is my car. It's very expensive. Someone might rob it. Someone might steal it. Someone might damage it. I should have parked it at some other place. Maybe it is an old car. Now time has come to change the car. I have forgot to pay the lease onto my car. So if you have acquired it using a lease. So likewise, with respect to this car, there are so many different kind of relationships, different kinds of prepositions. Now, when you see this car, so different kinds of such thoughts might appear in your mind. So you start thinking, you start conceiving. So basically it is an important thing for me, a very important object for me. It's my car. So a car is something. Car is a very important thing. So that is how we typically perceive. That is how we typically react. And now say, for example, if you go to your house, okay, this is my house. Okay, this is what I have built. I have taken a loan from the bank. Okay, I still now have to pay that loan. So likewise, you start thinking. Probably now you are in the house, inside the house. So you can say like that, okay, this is my house, is one way of referring it. So I am inside the house is another way of referring it. So if you have seen a picture of your house, probably you can say, okay, this is my house located at another particular place. You can say like that. Okay, someone is trying to say it is for sale now. Say someone might want to buy it. So you can again refer it in a different way. So likewise, with respect to house, using different languages, grammar. So we are explaining many different aspects. So this is how we typically operate. Now you need to understand, I have given simple 2 examples. Likewise, with respect to water, fire, and then the air. So all different kinds of variety of physical world objects. So how we are referring, how we are very much like thinking about it, how we are conceiving about it, how we imagine about it. And then similarly, what is your idea about the whatever being born? Different people are there. So what is your response towards them when you see someone, another human being? So what is your response? So if he is your relative, if he is your mother, father, daughter, son, whatever, husband, wife, so how we are relating. So then there is someone who may be very important to you, who maybe you are loving with, and now you want to talk to, you want to marry or divorce, whatever. Now likewise, we start thinking with respect to Buddha, who has already arisen, who has already been born. And similarly, with respect to, say, Deva, have you seen a Deva, or are you going to become a Deva? So someone might argue, okay, Deva realm is inside the human realm. There is no something called Devas. Oh, I have seen a Deva. Deva is this much of splendor is with them. So you can start explaining the Deva, thinking about Deva, imagine about the Devas. And then, so this Pajapati, Brahma, and all these are fairly Hindu concepts. Pajapati is one venerated concepts in the Brahmanism. So if someone is in that faith, so what are you thinking about that particular Deva, that particular Brahman? And similarly, Abhassara, Subhakinha, all these are different Brahma realms. So what is your idea about them? Because we haven't gone to them, we have attained to them. So probably you might have gone through some jhanic experience. So what is your view about these different Rupavachara Brahma realms? So when someone is talking about it, when someone is preaching about it, probably we start thinking. So similarly, the Arupa Jhana realms, say the unlimited space, that boundless space, boundless consciousness, nothingness, etc. So what is your reaction when someone is talking about it? So have you attained some kind of such experience? Have you attained the boundless space? So if you have attained that, then that's a different experience that you may start thinking. One way talking about it, probably you might relate his experience or his speech with respect to your experience. But if you have no idea about it, it's another mere concept, a mere idea, a mere view, and you start thinking about it, how one can attain it, what is the procedure to attain it. So it may be all mind-made ones, so we don't need to worry about it. So different way, likewise, one might think about it. And even the Nibbana, so that's the most interesting part. So what is our idea about Nibbana? So someone might say, okay, Nibbana is something that you have to attain after the death. So you may be imagining in that line then. Someone might say, okay, Nibbana is something that you need to attain in this very life. So you may start thinking in that line. Someone might say, okay, Nibbana is nothing but, so when you are completely healthy in this life, so you may experience the Nibbana. That is the Nibbana, then you're thinking, you know. And someone might say, okay, Nibbana is something that you may attain after you attaining the first jhana. Accordingly, you may start thinking, is this a correct Nibbana, or is this something wrong? I have to further explore Nibbana. So what is the Buddhist explanation about Nibbana? So now Nibbana is a concept. So we can talk about Nibbana, we can discuss about Nibbana. So still it's something operating in our mind superficially, and we are thinking about Nibbana. So all are actually, we are trying to understand through reasoning, understand through logical thinking, imagining. So that's why we start thinking. All are promoting some sort of a thinking. Okay, now we can move to the next part, Saman.
The monk who is a learner has the following attitude. The monk who is a learner has the following attitude. Yopiso bhikkhave bhikkhu seko sopi pataving patavito abhijanati pataving patavito abhinyaya pataving mamanyi pataviya mamanyi patavito mamanyi pataving meti mamanyi pataving ma abhinandi tan kissa hetu parinyayang tassati vadami apam apato nibbana nibbanato. Monks, whatever monk is a learner, he understands through higher knowledge the earth as earth. Knowing earth as earth, he let him not imagine earth as such. Let him not imagine on the earth. Let him not imagine from the earth. Let him not imagine earth is mine. Let him not rejoice in earth. What is the reason for this? I say it is because it should be well comprehended by him. The attitude.
Okay. Yeah, one moment. Now, this is the training, a Seka Puggala who has attained either Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami. So this is the state that he is further learning, he is further training. Now, he has some direct experience about, say, Patavi. So he has practiced the Kanupassana, he has practiced, say, for example, the elements meditation. So he knows what are the characteristics of this Patavi. What are the characteristics of Apo? What are the characteristics of Tejo, Vayo? So he has some direct touch about that. So as he continue, probably the value that he has given to all these material objects becomes somewhat less attractive, and he can see through his own through his own direct knowledge. Okay, what is internal? I have considered internal matter, and what I have considered as external matter are nothing but the same matter. Whatever internal Patavi and whatever external Patavi are mere Patavi. So likewise, he is now developing himself. He is now further practicing so that he get a direct understanding about this material realm, about the matter, about the elements, for this whole physical realm. Now he has a kind of a direct touch through his own mindfulness, concentration, wisdom. He's now trying to understand. Now, when he has some such kind of an understanding, there may be the mind who is capable of letting go of all these concepts, letting go of all these attachments, kind of an ignorance, and time to time he can keep the mind completely quiet, and mind doesn't want to proliferate. When he see a house, the mind still remain calm without talking, without proliferating. When he see the car, still mind remain calm, secluded, without wanting to get involved. So still he see the car, still he see the house, but mind does not label it now. Mind does not want to get involved about it. Mind does not want to talk about it. Mind does not want to attach to that. Mind does not want to get attracted to that or even to hate that. So rather, mind has the capacity to look at it as it is. Ditte dittamatta. So it is a mere seeing is there, but he doesn't want to make it so specific, something valuable, something important. Rather, he is capable of keeping it as it is. Now, this is a kind of a skill that the yogi, the practitioner, would develop as a result of his practice. Now, all different concepts are there, but no more for him. He is capable of maintaining his mind unattached, uninvolved, free from proliferation. But unfortunately, time to time, still proliferation happens because he still has certain defilements. He still has some amount of ignorance. So again and again, sometimes he being carried away by concepts. He being fooled by the concepts. He again get into thinking about the concepts because still there are some amount of defilements. Even though he has some direct touch, still it is not completely fulfilled. It hasn't yet reached the completion. So as a result of that, again and again, there may be tangling happen. So now he want to further train himself. So that's why the term ma manyi. So don't conceive. So that's a kind of a advice that he is giving to himself. Whenever he see the car, so mind tempts to conceive, mind tempts to think, mind tempts to imagine, talk, or think about it. But now he is restraining himself. Don't proliferate. Don't think. It's a mere thought. It's a mere imagination. So likewise, he's trying to look at it objectively rather than being driven by the thoughts, thinking. Now he is further training himself. Still some vulnerability is there. Certain pitfalls are there, but he is trying his best to minimize it, to avoid it. So, because still he has the defilement, so he hasn't fully understood the reality as it is yet. Now, with respect to all other concepts also, the same line we need to understand. So, how a trainee would train himself further and further. Further and further, he is restraining himself, training himself, educating his mind, developing further wisdom so that the proliferation may not happen, the conceiving may not happen. So he is still training. Now we look into the Buddha and the Arahant.
The attitude of the Arahant and of the Tathagata may be understood by the following passage. Yopiso bhikkhave bhikkhu arahang kīnāsavo sopi pataving patavito abhijanāti pataving patavito abhiññāya pataving na maññati pataviya na maññati patavito na maññati pataving meti na maññati pataving nābhinandati taṃ kissa heto pariññātaṃ tassāti vadāmi āpaṃ āpato nibbānaṃ nibbānato. Monks, whatever monk is on one perfected, he too understands through his higher knowledge the earth as earth. Knowing earth as earth, he does not imagine earth as such. He does not imagine on the earth. He does not imagine from the earth. He does not imagine earth is mine. He does not rejoice in earth. What is the reason for this? I say, it is because it has been well comprehended by him. The average person, uninstructed in the Dhamma, with mere sensory perception to guide him, cognizes those 24 concepts as objects of thought. Having so cognized, he proceeds to imagine in terms of them as in accordance with the flexional pattern and delights in those concepts. This is because he lacks clear comprehension. He is misled by naive sense experience and by his tendencies towards tanha mana ditti papancha. Having evolved a concept, he proceeds to make it pliable and flexible. He resorts to inflection, which is an elementary feature in language. By establishing a correspondence between the grammar of language and the grammar of nature, he sets about weaving networks of papancha. The monk who is earnestly training himself on the path to Nibbana has refined and higher knowledge of those concepts. in accordance with the Dhamma. He therefore endeavors to refrain from egoistic imaginings based on the flexional pattern. Of him, it is said that he might gain comprehension by his training. The Arahant and Tathagata, who have intuitively gained the higher knowledge, are not beguiled by the flexional or grammatical patterns of concepts as to indulge in egoistic imaginings. Therein the full comprehension. Though the sutta makes no mention of the term papancha, Buddha Ghosha has rightly discerned its relevance to the sutta, hence he draws attention to it thus. Shall I continue, Bhante?
I think we can stop here. So basically the point what we need to understand is that the Arahant basically has no proliferation at all, because he has thoroughly trained himself and he thoroughly understood the things as they truly are. So as a result of that, he no more proliferates, he no more imagines, he no more conceives. And the trainee, basically still he has to further train himself. Still the training is not yet complete. So he has to further train, because time to time, again, mind tempts to conceive, tempts to imagine, tempts to proliferate. Now he needs to restrain further himself so that he stops quickly. But on the other hand, the typical worldly person, uninstructed person, he continuously look at things from their normal influential pattern, that what he has known, what he has learned, and he keeps thinking, keep proliferating. So this is the way that Buddha explains very beautifully and very comprehensively, taking 24 examples from different domains and explaining us how we need to take the approach. So rather than simply allowing the senses to operate and then impulsively react and think, are we able to go through some practice, and so that we are able to minimize proliferation, keep the mind fairly quiet without thinking, without proliferating, at least for some time, so that we experience it, we touch it. We know some potential is still available in the mind. When we see things, the mind still remains without talking about it, without naming it, without labeling it. When we hear things, mind remains calm, quiet, without labeling it, naming it, getting tangled with it. So likewise, we need to further and further develop this skill till it comes to the completion. The person who has completed it is the person who is, we are talking as fully enlightened person. Okay, with that we'll conclude today's discussion, rather the explanation taken on this concept and reality book. Now I'd like to open the session for questions.
Sarai Sarnansa.
Yeah.
We have 6 questions today. Question number 1 of 6, this mindful sitting. Dear Bhante, my sitting practice is mindfulness on breath. I can focus on the observations of the in-breath and out-breath and can establish mindfulness after several minutes. When everything calms down, my mind starts drifting away. During similar reflection reports, I have heard the question about if we like or dislike this phenomenon. Can Bhante help to understand this liking and disliking states of the mind in context of the drifting mind? With metta, that's the end of the question.
Can you repeat the last statement, Jamila?
Yeah. Can Bhante help to understand this liking and disliking states of the mind in the context of a drifting mind?
Drifting mind.
With,
Okay.
with metta.
So basically we have our own tendencies already operating in our mind. So certain people might like a particular color. Some others may not like that color. And some people may like a particular song. Some others may not like that song. Someone may like a particular flower, but some others may not like that flower. So likewise, we have our own likes and dislikes. So they are the ones actually causing us a lot of trouble. So if something is likable and something that appealing and something so much attractive to me, so whenever I see it, then I get attracted to that. I feel sort of elated about it. I want to have it. I want to possess it. I am worried whether someone is someone would steal it. So likewise, I start thinking, I start having many defilements in the mind. So because of this likes and dislikes operating in our mind. So if one is able to understand these likes and dislikes, how our mind is reacting as a result of that, that's a very good exploration that one can do about one's mind. So what are the tendencies available? What are those preconceived ideas we have or perceptions we have, which are the ones actually governing the pattern or governing the behavior of our mind? So we all have those tendencies. Those are the ones that we need to thoroughly understand, carefully understand, so that we no more being pulled by them, no more being governed by them. So currently how we are operating are fairly influenced by all these likes and dislikes, all these tendencies operating in the mind. Now, more we understand them, then we have a kind of a choice, either to follow it or to ignore it. Now we are no more a slave to them. Rather, we have the capacity to recognize it and let it go, rather than further strengthen it, reinforce it. That's a very good point that you're highlighting. So that's the whole purpose of Vipassana. So we need to understand all these tendencies, how the mind is operating, how the so-called I being operating, my likes, my preferences, all that being operating as a result of these kind of latent tendencies in the mind. And once we are able to recognize it, slowly, we can avoid being a victim of those influences, tendencies operating in the mind.
Question number 2 of 6 is a general question. Dear Bhante, last week there was a question on what should we highlight as the essence of Buddhism. And Bhante replied that it is mainly around understanding of suffering and getting free from suffering. Can Bhante explain a bit more about the deeper meaning of suffering, as I have recently heard that more we understand suffering, the more we abandon the cause of suffering. What is the profound meaning of suffering, and why did the Blessed One state that suffering is the basis of everything, everywhere? Much merits for your service with metta. That's the end of the question.
Yeah, actually, basically, we need to get into some deeper explanation about the dukkha satcha. So Buddha basically say birth is suffering, aging is suffering, getting sick is suffering, being with whom that you don't like is suffering. Likewise, so there are many areas, the typical areas, what we can already understand is there. And apart from that, Panchupadana dukkha. So that's the more deeper part that he is explaining. Wherever we grasp, once the mind has grasped something, that causes suffering. So those are the upadana khanda, those are the 5 aggregates. And they have the tendency for us to get attached to. We have the tendency for us to get clinging with. And as a result of that, we start burdening, we start suffering, we start feeling unsatisfied, all that is there. Now basically, another line is that Buddha simply say, I now and I even in the past has mentioned only this, what is arising is suffering, what is passing away is nothing but suffering. There is no person, there is no being, there is no any other thing. What is arising is suffering, what is passing away is merely suffering. There is no person, there is no being. That's another area that I like to link with this discussion. So basically, whatever conditioned phenomena we can consider as belong to the dukkha satcha, or belong to the truth of suffering. So we don't need to look at it from a negative point of view. What we need to see is that they are impermanent. They can't remain as it is. They are continuously changing. So as a result of that, we can't expect them to behave in such a manner consistently for a long time, because they are conditioned. They are influenced by so much of other factors, causes. At any given moment, they can change their behavior. So if we attach to the current behavior, then we'll be in trouble, because next moment it may change the behavior. So that's the issue. So if we attach to it, which if we hook up it, so if we attach to it, link to it, grasp to it, then we'll be in trouble, because we then start dependent on it, and once it is changing, we being shocked, or we being sort of trembled. Now, so in that sense, all what we are experiencing, in a way, we can say is the suffering. Dukkhe loko patittito. So that's why in summary, Buddha say, okay, this whole world is established on suffering. So basically, when we are operating in Khayanupassana, so what we are trying to understanding is the material realm of this suffering. In the Vedananupassana, the feeling realm of this suffering. In the Chittanupassana, the consciousness realm of this suffering. Perception realm of this suffering. The formations realm of this suffering. So likewise, the Satipatthana actually help us to understand these 5 aggregates, the suffering, in deeper sense, in direct sense. So therefore, more and more we understand that, so then we may see their impermanent nature, no point of attached to it, no point of expecting any satisfaction from it, because it's utterly vulnerable, utterly uncertain. So now you start giving up, now you start letting go. And therefore, the thorough understanding of suffering leads to the abandonment of craving. So these 4 noble truths are fairly interconnected in that sense. So if you start operating in the first noble truth, then actually the second noble truth start slowly letting go, slowly abandoned. The tanha, the craving start slowly depleted. And time to time now you experience calmness, happiness, peace in your mind. So the third noble truth start available to you. And the whole development of this path is the Noble Eightfold Path. Back to you, Chamila.
Question number 3 of 6. This is a Dhammasaman question. Dear sir, if Prapancha Nirodha is complete cessation of thoughts or inner silence, how can one do wise reflection or yoniso manasikara? With metta, that's the end of the question.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So basically we think, okay, in order to stop proliferation, I need to stop talking. So that's a wrong way of understanding. So non-proliferation does not mean non-thinking altogether. So when you need, you can think. When you don't need, you can keep the mind quiet. So that is the kind of point that Buddha highlights in the, say, Vitakka Santana Sutta. It is not here we are trying to prohibit thinking. It is not here we are trying to stop thinking altogether. Rather, the proliferation is where you being sort of a victim to thinking. So you are sort of under the captivity of thinking. Now, non-proliferation means, okay, you can stop thinking at any time once you know, okay, I have done. Say you are singing a song. Now someone has asked you to sing a song. Say you are singing. Fine, so you are singing. And after the end of the song, so you complete it, and now you keep your mouth shut and you are silent. So can you do like that with our mind? So when there is a purpose, we start thinking, okay, there is a purpose. I need to reflect about the future, kind of a planning. Okay, I am doing it. Mindfully, I am doing it. So it is now completed, done. Now can I keep the mind quiet? So this is the kind of ability that we are trying to highlight. And therefore, it doesn't mean that we avoid any sort of thinking. Rather, we are able to think mindfully.
Question number 4 of 6. This is a general question. Avasarai Bante. We have heard that the person who created the Aukana Pilimaya attained Nibbana at the end of the creation by simply being mindful for a long time. Is this true? Also, does this mean a creative person who does miniature detailing in a craft can develop mindfulness through that activity, even though they are not thinking that they are doing a form of meditation? Thank you for your answer. With metta. That's the end of the question.
So this is the first day that I get to know this thing. It's an interesting point that you are highlighting. So actually, if we are doing a particular task mindfully, so one possibility is that you completely get absorbed to that task. Even someone come and talk to you, you don't aware. So then it is not the mindfulness that we are talking. Rather, when you are doing a particular task, we have to have some understanding about that task. At the same time, we have to have some understanding about the outside world as well. It is not a complete absorption that we are talking here. Rather, the mindful space is a kind of broader space. It includes the present task. At the same time, some meta-awareness is available about the other task as well, other world as well. So that is another point that I like to highlight. Now, so if you are doing it mindfully in this way, so you have understanding about what you are doing and you are doing it carefully, mindfully, still knowing about the outside world also. So it can you can do it as a way of meditation. So while doing that, you might start with the body awareness and how you establish mindfulness about this craft, about this operation, the tiny, very, say, precise operation. And probably you can even think about or be aware of your thoughts, how they are coming and going. And now probably you can even keep it completely empty. The mind is in the emptiness while your body is working that task. So you don't need to make a self thinking, okay, I am the craftsman, I am the best craftsman or something like that. Don't need to create any kind of a conceit or any such defilement. So you can be aware of if there are any kind of defilements happening. So in a way, if we are doing it in such a way, definitely it become a kind of a meditation.
Question number 5 of 6. This is the Dhammasaman question. Dear Bhante, are concepts just a means to communicate in the conventional truth or world? Thank you. That's the end of the question.
Yes, we can say so. So the concepts are merely concepts. We don't need to add essence to them. We don't need to add any overemphasis to them or any additional value to them. Rather, we need to use them. They have a purpose. And we are using them effectively, correctly. But knowing they are mere concepts.
Question number 6 of 6. This is the last question. This is the Dhammasaman question. Dear Bhante, regarding the way undisciplined people look at things are explained today, Bhante highlighted the prapancha aspect. If we eradicate prapancha, does that mean our tannamana ditti will automatically reduce and come to an end? With metta, that's the end of the question.
Yeah, that's a very, very important question. That is what Buddha explained in the Madhupindika Sutta. So, for someone, there may be a certain object which produces thinking in him. So, he's an untrained person. It's a beautiful image. So, he starts thinking the instant that he sees it. But a trainee still see it, but there is no proliferation promoted. There is no proliferation triggered in his mind. He can keep the mind quiet. Now, the second person has the potential to end the suffering, to end all the tendencies. So, this is very well explained in the Madhupindika Sutta. You can read that. Let me find out. Give me a second. So, Buddha say there, Yato nidanam bhikkhu purisang papancha sanya sanka samudacharanti ettache natti abhinandi tabbang abhivadi tabbang ajjose tabbang esevanto raganusayatang esevanto patiganusayanang esevanto ditthanusayanang esevanto vichikiච්ඡානුsayanang esevanto mananusayanang esevanto bhavaraganusayanang esevanto avijjanusayanang. So basically Buddha particularly highlight, see, if the person has the capacity, if the person has the potential to avoid any kind of adherence, avoid any kind kind of a welcoming, avoid any kind of a elation, delighting of any of these concepts, and he is capable of avoiding any kind of mental proliferation. So that way of path, that way of practice definitely will lead to abandon all the latent tendencies.
So
back to you, Chamila.
Yeah. So we have come to the end of written questions, and I think we have just come up to time, so we can end the program now. To end the program today, I would first like to pass our merits and thank Bhante for his valuable time. To all the supporters of this program, both seen and unseen, and to the participants for joining today to practice and share their questions. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thero Saranai.
Yeah, Thero Saranai.